I am enough is a popular slogan for a lot of groups and a lot of people. Let's see how we can use that spiritually. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. Welcome. We are simply trying to explore what it means to have a relationship with God. Glad that you're here with us. We're doing that by looking at how to make Christianity practical every day. How do we put this to use? And so we're looking at truth. We're looking at dispelling myths. We're trying to hold Christians accountable as well. So you'll find that this channel, this podcast is a lot about talking to Christians specifically because we're held to a higher standard. So if you're listening to us on podcasts, thank you for being here. We're asking you to subscribe, to rate, and review at some point, and that helps us get the word out even more about what we're doing here. If you're on YouTube, we welcome you. We want you to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell that keeps you up to date with our new releases. Also like it if this content helps you, and even better, share it with somebody else and leave us some comments that gives us feedback. It tells us if you have ideas about content that you'd like to hear about as well. So we're looking at Genesis chapter 4, Cain and Abel. And this is probably not the lesson you would think of, but it comes here. Actually, we're going to look at two passages, really, Genesis 4, 1 Corinthians chapter 12 as well. I am enough. Do you really believe it? Because if you don't, you can be judgmental of people that you feel better than, or you can destroy yourself by thinking that person over there is better than you. Well, Cain came first. Cain's the older brother. Adam and Eve. Adam knew his wife Eve, and she bore a son, Cain, and she praised God. And then not long after, here comes Abel. Cain is good at farming. He's a keeper of the ground, if you will. Abel is good at being a shepherd and keeping sheep. Now, they both bring an offering to God. And what you don't find in the story or in the account of this is God specifically asking for a specific offering, but you do see an acceptance and a rejection. So God, of course, as many of you know, accepts Abel's offering, who brings this firstborn. He brings the very best of what he has. Maybe Cain did the same thing too. Cain brings his offering here. I believe he's the first one to do it. Let's see, in the course of time, verse 3, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. Could have been the very best he could bring. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions, and the Lord had regard for Abel and for his offering, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. Now, the reaction is what I want to look at, because Cain, as you know, killed Abel eventually. But in the immediate aftermath, after God rejected him, he says Cain was very angry and his face fell. You know what that feels like, right? Whether you've been embarrassed or whether you fell short, you failed in some way, you everything drops. And it's a hard time picking that back up. Well, his face fell here, and the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why has your face fallen?" Which sounds kind of absurd for God to ask. I'm not slamming God here, but it sounds kind of absurd. What do you mean, why? Well, here it is very simply. We complicate it. God makes it simple here. He asked him these questions and then says in verse 7, if you do well, will you not be accepted? And it's not impossible, because his little brother just did it, right? He just brought him this sheep, the firstborn of his flock, and the fat as well, and God accepted it. If you do not do well, God continues, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. Meaning you got to do what I want, if God's talking to Cain here. But he's trying to encourage him. Look, why are you down? Why are you upset? Why are you angry? All you have to do is turn around, try again, do right. Otherwise, it's going to be sin waiting for you at the door, and you got to rule over it. Now, in 1 Corinthians, give me a second here. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, beginning at verse 12, it talks about us being members, those of us who are Christians being members of a body. I know we struggle with this because we're human beings and we have our differences, and we live in a world that classifies, and we're seeing a lot of that now in our culture, that classifies and ranks and rates according to abilities, according to all kinds of things. Well, he's honing in on us being members of one body. Ephesians 1 stresses this. Romans 12 stresses this. And he says, just as the body is one and has many members, and all members of the body, though many are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, all were made to drink of one spirit. It doesn't matter what you are good at, where you come from, what your abilities are. None of those things matter. They all mesh and come together as one in this unity that Jesus prayed for so hard in John 17. The body does not consist of one member, but of many. So it's all of us in this body. That's the church. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body. Because a foot might feel like, well, the hands have a lot more. If we're talking specifically a physical body, the hands have a lot more ability and responsibility, and I'm basically just walked on all day. That would not make it any less part of the body, he says. If the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I don't belong to the body. You see the comparison there? I wish I was like this person that's so much better. I wish I had this talent. I wish I could do this. And because I'm not that, maybe I'm just not as important. Because I'm not the preacher, because I'm not this person who's so active or this person who's so good at whatever trait. And you've probably done it. You looked at somebody else's faith and you looked at a missionary who goes across seas and preaches the gospel. You think, wow, I've never done anything like that. And you start to demean yourself. If the whole body were an eye in verse 17, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? You starting to get the picture? But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? Quick statement right here. You better be real careful about dogging yourself, and everything we say or do is a message to God. And if I look at me and say, well, I'm just not good enough at this, and this, I might very well be telling God, you could have done a better job when you made me. But see, God chose you and he chose me, and he put us in specific positions with specific abilities, blessings of God's grace that he's given to us, and God arranges them the way he wants. If it were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. So the eye can't say to the hand, I have no need of you. That's the reverse. Those who are good at things and feel good, let's say, look, I can talk like this. Preachers have a hard time not being arrogant. Well, if you knew more of your Bible, or if you could preach like I could, we really don't need you because you can't do the things that I do. That's the reverse. Then you become judgmental because somebody else doesn't have your abilities. But the eye can't say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, meaning you can't do without them. It's in my old illustration, people have heard me preach this and talk about this, is the big toe. I hate feet, especially adult feet. The only time I liked my kids' feet was when they were real little, because most of the time they were clean. When you start thinking about a big toe, that's like one of the nastiest parts of the body we don't even think about. But if you cut your big toe off, you can't balance very well. So he's making that point here. There should be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for each other. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. You are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church, and he gives all of these that he's appointed to do. And then he says, desire the higher gifts, which specifically will go on to be love in the next chapter. What's the point? Stop comparing yourself and contrasting yourself to other people. It doesn't matter what I'm good at in comparison to you or in contrast to you. It doesn't matter that I'm better at certain things than you are. It doesn't matter that you're better at certain things than I am. None of that makes any difference. We've got to stop comparing each other. Everybody has strengths. Everybody has weaknesses. They're all different, and thank God they are, because that's what brings us together. It's the same thing in a marriage. You usually marry somebody who's opposite of you many ways because we fit together like a puzzle piece. They sound like a terrible, cheesy movie quote. We complete each other. That's the whole idea. So you need to be thankful for what you have, and you need to look here for your comparison strategy, your contrast strategy. This is your mirror. Don't worry about what other people are not doing necessarily. Don't worry about what you're doing so well or what you wish you could do, and just beg, plead, fight, claw, and scratch for God's approval. And it'll be a much healthier Christian life.